Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Everybody ready to fall asleep during another talk? I think it's me between cocktails and you guys. So I'll try to do this between 30 and 40 minutes. And as I was told, if you want to do questions, we can do that over cocktails. No, I'm kidding. If there are any questions, feel free. Even during the presentation, more than happy to answer any questions. I'm not talking about anything earth-shattering or new. I'm just giving you a perspective from what Mandiant has observed over the last couple of years, attending the largest breaches or the breaches that matter that we have attended to. Last year, we attended over 500 breaches. Of some of you have read in the news about it, others you have never heard about, and you will never hear about. Who in the room has heard of Mandiant before? Who has heard of FireEye before? About a similar kind of a group. So I'll go a little bit over it, who we are for the folks who have never heard of us. And then I will talk a little bit about the non-malware type of attacks that we have observed and why they're important and why we should look out for them. And then a couple of tips and hints, which you all probably are already familiar about, what you could do in your organizations to prevent these sorts of attacks from happening. And as much as security professionals like we are preaching this every day and every hour to our organizations, we get constantly calls that organizations have been breached. So even though education is becoming better and better, it's still not 100% solving the problem. Any idea why it's not solving the problem?
People haven't changed their behaviors.
Pardon me?
People haven't changed their behaviors.
People haven't changed their behaviors, and people usually are the weakest link, right? So there's no technology and nothing out there that can prevent against that human being that's clicking on that malicious link. So Mandiant was founded about, I believe, 14 years ago by Kevin Mandia. Has anyone ever heard of Kevin Mandia? He's actually now the CEO of FireEye. So FireEye bought Mandiant four years ago. And then last year, Kevin Mandia became the CEO of the entire company. And Kevin Mandia pretty much, with a small team, developed the idea and the methodology around incident response. When he sort of worked for government organizations in the US, he felt that when there were attacks, there was no methodology out there yet how to deal with these incidents and how to address and how to remediate these incidents to get back the organizations or the agencies back to normal and learn from these, right? We want to learn from these incidents. So we are protected in the future and these sorts of attacks won't happen to us again. We have consultants, incident responders worldwide, 350 worldwide, 14 of us here in Canada. I'm based out of Toronto, so we have a Canadian practice. We're trying to hire out west here. If you're interested, see me after at the cocktail drinks. Always looking for good people. So why is Mandiant different from other consulting companies and from other incident responders is because we get called into these large breaches, and a lot of these breaches, we can see firsthand how the attackers and the malicious content gets into the organizations. What are the latest techniques they are using to get into the environments and circumvent technologies that companies are spending thousands or not even millions of dollars to prevent these attackers from getting into. We get these calls and we get those indicators of compromise firsthand. You all read about these larger breaches that we had last year around Swift, right? So having the indicators of compromise accessible early enough to us is benefiting other customers that we have. We have a large incident responding consultancy, so we are available to our customers worldwide, so we can quickly get to those clients. And we have also tools developed over the years that allow us to do very quick incident response on a large scale of enterprise environments with thousands and thousands of endpoints. We can deploy that very quickly, and it helps us to do live responses and contain and remediate very quickly. We have purchased a company, FireEye and Mandiant. We purchased a company last year called Eyesight. Anyone heard of Eyesight before? Eyesight is a company that does intelligence from an adversary perspective. So they're embedded in the dark webs and they listen to the chatter and they are getting intelligence to see if anyone is selling databases from breached victims, and that way we can gather intelligence that we can get back to our clients as well. And we feel that we're an industry leader when it comes to our incident response expertise. So I just mentioned this already. We have our, we work together with FireEye, where we have our appliances that gather intelligence for us. We have our incident response intelligence, and we have our Eyesight intelligence. This makes us unique when it comes to consulting to our customers from an incident response perspective. We're globally, we're everywhere in the world. We have data centers where we gather this information. So what we observed over the last year? Unfortunately, this conference is held in January, so we don't have a full accumulation of 2016 data yet, but I try as much as I can to bring 2016 data in, so to give you the latest and the greatest. So is anyone shocked about this number, that an attacker could be in your environment for 146 days without you even knowing about it? So that's the median number that we see in an organization. What's interesting about that is there's actually a difference between the geographies in the world that when it comes to detecting a breach within an organization, right? So in North America, we feel we're a little bit more mature, so we can detect or know about an attack in our environment much quicker than anywhere else in the world. How much data do you think could be exfiltrated from an environment in 146 days? It's a rhetorical question, right? It's a lot. So if you have even like gigabytes or terabytes of data, they could take that within that time frame. On average, it took a company who was breached 32 days from initial breach, from calling a company like us in. Again, 32 days is a lot. 53%, more than half, were notified that the breach happened by a third party. You never want to be the company who doesn't know first that they got breached, right? So I'll go into this a little bit later. So, but more than half, another very interesting statistic. The last one, and this is what I want to talk a little about, these non-malware types of breaches that we see. 100% of the victims had firewalls and up-to-date antivirus. So you're spending the money in what you think are the right places, but you're still getting breached. Any questions at this point? Here, just another slide highlighting the data that I just shared. One interesting fact, we have a proactive practice in Mandiant, and we do red teaming to help our clients understand where their gaps are. And on average, it takes us 3 days to get Active Directory access. And we have not had yet one single engagement where we not have had access to Active Directory. So it is possible. If we can do it, other attackers can do it too.
How do you quantify your 3 days? Like, what level of access do you have for day 3?
Administrative rights active, admin, full admin.
No, I think he means to start. What do you start with?
What we start with as a blank slate, and usually we do it with social engineering emails, right? So we do targeted spear phishing, and obviously try to evade the security controls that you already have in place. I'm assuming everyone has some sort of a technology in place to scan your emails now for phishing attempts, for malicious attachments, for macros in Word documents, and things like that. So obviously, we will have to try to evade these in order to get our targeted phishing attacks to the right person and to convince them to click on those on the malicious or the non-malicious link, depending on what we're sending. Try to get some sort of an action from a user within the environment. Yes?
Did any of them find out by the third day that you had probably got access?
It depends how we structured the engagement. If it was an engagement where it was pure red teaming, they did not know about it, otherwise they would have stopped us. If it was a sort of red team versus blue team where they try to see how far we can go, sometimes they detect us, but they let it go because they want to achieve a different objective. if their SOC would detect us at any point. But a very good question. Over the last couple of years, the maturity of organizations is getting better when it comes to detection of malicious attackers in the environment. So you see that it's going down. We expect it's going down again. But again, this is just sort of from a North American perspective. If you look globally, there's still a big gap. I still think that 146, and let it be 135 or 120 this year, is still a long time. So there's still a lot of education and maturity within our organization that's required in order to stop these attackers faster, or to stop them once they're in the environment without stealing anything. So I talked about this. 53% get external notifications from law enforcement, from the media, from the press, from others that they have been notified, that they have been breached because privacy data or confidential data has been leaked and they didn't know about it. You don't have to put your hand up if you're not brave enough. Anyone had experienced any breaches in the last little while? You probably don't want to put your hand. Oh, excellent. I don't want to put you on the spot, but was it ransom? What type of a breach?
Website, Facebook.
Okay. Okay, and how quickly did you notice it? Website is usually fairly.
Hours.
Okay. Excellent.
And the real concern was that all they were doing, or were they actually trying
Then
to
you
do
have,
something else?
how far does the breach go, right? If they can do that, what else can they do? Interesting point. Thanks for putting it. Anyone else want to share their great experiences when it comes to breaches? The number is going back and forth. If you go back even just 5-6 years, almost all of the breach notifications were external, right? So again, this is another sign that organizations are becoming more mature and better in detecting and responding to incidents. And you all probably are also aware of breach notification laws that are coming into effect in Canada, that it's probably better if you are on this side of this slide than on the other side, because that will have a lot, that looks much more positive on you if you tell the privacy commissioner that you were breached than somebody else, right? What did we which industries did we investigate the most? Anyone, any ideas, suggestions why high tech and telecommunications is at the top? Well, it's pretty obvious, right? Who do we have here from each of those sectors, like from the high ones? High tech, telecommunications, do we have people here? Wow, very shy group. Anything popping out why they thought something is not as high as it should be? Like retail, for example, I would have expected maybe to be a little bit higher because there's a lot of stuff to be taken, but
healthcare was on the soup du jour, so to speak.
yeah, it's actually getting bigger, and I'm pretty sure when you look at the last year's numbers, it will be higher. Like we had the Anthem breaches and all that stuff, right? So, and
Energy companies broken down for oil and gas or hydro or energy services.
yeah, that would be a good thing to look at. Like if I look at Canada, this is globally what we see. If I look at Canada, energy and natural resources is probably one of the higher ones that we see. And the other one in Canada that we see is entertainment. And I'll go into that in a little bit. The number one attack vector still is phishing. And this just shows what sort of the aggregation was of where these successful phishing emails sort of came from a subject perspective. So IT and security was the most often misused to send to victims to get them to click on something or do something. Because you guys know that as security professionals, we can tell the layman people pretty much to do anything what we want, right? So what I'm kidding. What I'm saying is that that's taken seriously within an organization. If you get an email like that, well, please don't click on any email. Just read more on this link below, and people do it, right? Because that's what happens. Just an interesting study when the most phishing emails are being sent, what we have seen during the week on a Wednesday, when everybody just is getting tired from working Monday and Tuesday, getting ready for the weekend again. I guess people think they have to click on stuff more. I don't know what the reason is. So non-malware type of attacks. What are the attacks that we have seen that don't necessarily need to even get into the organization? That's the last one I will be talking about. Or what evades our security controls that we have put in place and allows an attacker or to circumvent what we have put in place. So obviously, credential phishing is a big one, and I'm not sure who has phishing campaigns going on in the organization to educate their people not to get phished. Who does that? So what is the percentage in your organization of these educational exercises of people clicking or not clicking on a link? Is it working? Do you feel it works?
It depends. In our environment, it's changing, but it's not. We'd like to say it's changing because of education, but unfortunately, the numbers they fluctuate in weird ways. So we see improvements through education, but then we see the numbers go back up again with different campaigns and better crafted campaigns.
Exactly. So it comes down to the campaign, right?
Yeah.
So the more recognizable, obviously, a campaign is and we talked about it earlier about the Nigerian prince with a lot of spelling mistakes in the email. Obviously, I would say 99% of us wouldn't click or do any action with that email. But if you get emails, and it's very interesting what we have, organizations, charitable foundations, like anything that has to do with charity, the click rate's very high. You get an email, oh, you're selected from IT to be part of an early adopter program or to receive like an iPad or the latest technology. Very high click rate. Like when people think there's something special or they want to help other people, the click rates suddenly go up, right? So what usually happens then is, for example, for the charitable organization, a website is being put up, you know how it all looks, and it can even be like we all say, oh, look at a spelling mistake in the URL. You can even we even see now legit URLs that organizations have that they buy, and it looks like it could be from that organization, like XYZ organization, charitablefoundation.ca, right? And then there's no spelling mistake in the organization's name in there. It could look very legit. So the first page that you get on there, it says you need to log into this website to get access to do your donation. So people put in their username and their password, and boom, somebody already harvested that username and the credential. And then it even goes further. It can say you can donate in two ways. You can donate by filling out this form online, or you can download this Word document with the form. And by the way, if there's a macro that pops up, just click yes, because we want your money anyways, right? So there's 3 ways on this one single website to harvest credentials and get access to that website. The last one with the macro obviously is a malware type of an attack. But the first one, I harvested a credential without even one piece of malware. I just sent them to a website that looks very legit. And if that company has, and you see that, and you will probably shake your head, single-factor VPN access, I can now get access to the organization. Who has dual authentication on their VPN? Who does not? So obviously there's still people out there who doesn't. Two-factor authentication, as you will see on one of the slides at the end, is one of the first recommendations we give our clients after a breach. Because credential harvesting is very, very easy to do. And once somebody has the credentials, they have access to your network. So if you want to take that note down, dual-factor authentication. And I'm not in sales for dual-factor authentication. Here's just an example of one phishing campaign that we did. So 54 executives of an organization we sent an email to. So we got 3 out-of-office replies. Well, they were lucky they weren't there. But 17% entered the credentials right away on the website. 11 proceeded to download the document that I mentioned and enabled macros. And here's where the kicker comes in, I think. 2 users that we didn't target clicked on it because they were forwarded the email by those original 54. So we even got more than we actually phished. So, and really it comes down to what you said, how well crafted. I think no technology ever will stop every single phishing email that's out there. No education campaign within an organization will stop every single phishing email that's out there. What we need to get to is, and it takes one click to circumvent all that we have put in, all the money that we spent. So we need to think about what are we doing when we're getting breached? When is our incident response program coming in? How quickly can we detect that we are breached and can put our playbooks and our incident response plan into play to recover from that? Because you don't want to be that 146-day statistic that I'm talking about. You want to be the one that might have been breached, let's say 24 hours ago, and then you have your incident response plan in play and you start your remediation process without the attacker getting to your crown jewels and stealing them. Does that make sense? Who has an incident response plan? Who does tabletop exercises? Still, people are not putting up their hands. So all of these sorts of things, if you are great, keep doing it, right? Fine-tune your incident response plan, learn from it. Somebody talking there? You had a question? Okay. Command and control PowerShell stagers. Who does not know what PowerShell is? PowerShell is part of the Windows command line or administrative features. And PowerShell together with PowerShell Empire, if you want to write that down, you can Google that, is part of what administrators are actually using to administer their environment. So if you are able to run these sorts of commands or exploits within the organization and you're not specifically looking for it, it almost could look like administrators are doing their regular work within an environment. You don't even know that an attacker is in there. So what has happened? In the entertainment industry, at the beginning of November, 5 people got an email that was spoofed coming from the manager that said, attached is the holiday schedule for the 2016 holiday. How many people do you think clicked on the link that they wanted to download the holiday schedule? All of them. So they clicked on that link, nothing happened. Because it just simply downloaded some PowerShell code. The user had administrative rights on the Windows machine, and it put a stager into the registry. No malware, all PowerShell and PowerShell Empire. And that this PowerShell sort of stager was then establishing a connection back to the command and control server, and then downloaded whatever code they needed. Then the malware came in, whatever they needed to do credential harvesting, to move laterally within the organization. So all of them clicked on that email and saw nothing happen. So 2 of those people actually clicked on the link twice because, oh, it didn't work the first time, so let's try it again. So it's very, very interesting how human beings and human behavior actually worked. So it took about 10 days before in IT, somebody noticed when they came to their desk that somebody else was logged into their workstation and looked fishy. So they opened that, they logged into their workstation and they saw Dropbox staging, files being copied to Dropbox ready to be put out. So they knew they were hacked. So again, this original email with this link to download this code evaded all of the security controls that we had put in place. Now, there are now technologies in place to monitor for this. You can set up Windows, for example, to monitor PowerShell activity. Now, if you are an organization where your administrators are using PowerShell, it becomes more difficult to detect what is legit and what's not legit. So you have to come up with ways to find it. So you have to create use cases that monitor, that send PowerShell activity, your SIM, and do use case analysis there that alerts you if something happens out of the ordinary. So all of these things can be done. So the PowerShell and PowerShell Empire is very powerful. You want to probably let your system administrators know about it, read up about it. There are technologies now coming into play that I've seen that actually can detect the original email. So I can talk about that a little bit later over cocktails if you like. Has anyone noticed that? Has anyone had experience getting breached like that? So this is the attack that I was talking about, and this is this attack that we're seeing is very Canada specific. We as Mandiant have only noticed this attacker working in Canada with victims in Canada. So it's relatively unsophisticated in a sense that they're not creating their own malware. They're using exactly what I just talked about, the PowerShell and the PowerShell Empire. It's freely available to download. Anybody sitting here can use it and attack somebody tonight. Goes back to 2013. They call themselves the Tesla team. If you get an email from them, please give us a call. So they usually steal lots of data, and then they send the victim an email and say, we stole gigabytes of your data, and they put a couple of documents on these publicly available websites, and they will ask for Bitcoin. The last attack that we have seen was 500,000 in Bitcoins they asked for. That's a lot of money. They also are threatening with destroying the infrastructure, so like deleting servers and things like that. So that happens. If you notice that they are in your environment and you're not fast enough with your containment before you don't pay them or whatever, they can put damage to your infrastructure. And if your backups or whatever are not the way they're supposed to be, you will have a hard time getting back. Like, it causes a lot of destructive damage. So first, they will threaten with the release of the information that they stole, and second, if you don't pay, they will destroy your infrastructure. So they use PowerShell and PowerShell Empire, but they also use Metasploit and SplinterRat, which is also publicly available. They use these stages that I talked about. They don't do, not like nation-state attackers who can create their own or have the means to create their own malware. This attacker does not do that. We have observed them in one environment for over 1.5 years, so that's a long time. So they can stay there dormant and gather information for a very long time. And they leverage that single-factor VPN that I said. So if you're on single-factor VPN and you're in the process of putting a budget for this year together, or if you have funds, please make that one of your priorities. So they will use the Tor environment. Usually they come from servers in Russia. So if you don't have any business with Russia, you can block Russian IP addresses. Not that it will save you or secure you from attacks, but it will eliminate a lot of attack vectors. And here's just one way that we have noticed that they would try to destroy your infrastructure. They're mostly active on Windows environments. That doesn't mean that they can't do it on Linux, but if you're 100% or a very high percentage of Windows shop, they will move within the environment very easily once they're in. Any questions? There is a team that's called the real Tesla team, but they only do DDoS attacks, so they're different. That's why we call them the fake Tesla teams. They also call themselves Anonymous Threat Agent or Tesla team. And they try to pretend to be Russian, but they're not. If you put it in Google Translate, it's actually English. So anyways, if you don't pay, they will dump your data. That's guaranteed. They exaggerate their technical skills. They're very, very low technical. And you can negotiate them. You can buy time. Like if you engage with them, you can. But again, if you get a fake Tesla team email, please give us a call. We can help you all through that. We have experience with them. The other non-malware type of attack that we have observed is more like of a blackmail. It's not really that they breach your environment, but you might get an email that says if you don't pay us in Bitcoin, we will DDoS you and you won't have access to the internet, or your customers won't have access to your environment. So, or they will threaten to hack the organization. So that's another one. So if you have seen an email from like fake lizard squad, we call them, that looks somewhat like this, and it talks about subject DDoS attack imminent. You should probably read this. Please forward this email to somebody in your environment. And it keeps going. We will DDoS your environment. Search us on Google. We're actually not faking it. It's actually true what we do. And they're actually very cheap. If you pay them 5 Bitcoins, then we will go away. So they're just threatening, right? So we haven't seen them actually do the DDoS attacks. But if you get an email like that and it's pretty cheap, you pay 5 Bitcoin, a lot of people probably pay them, and that's how they make their money, right? So, has anyone seen that email? They even tell you how to get Bitcoins. So if you have no experience with it. And they really stress it's not a hoax. So we're serious. But it's more, we have not seen them do the DDoS attack. So it stays with the email. Some victims pay and they don't get attacked, but even if you don't pay, usually you don't. But how are we ever sure? You're never sure, right? And depending on your business model, and you need the internet, you need your customers to get access to you, then you might not want to risk something like that and pay the 5 Bitcoins that they're. So how do we know that they were fake? We have never seen them do DDoS attacks. They use the same Bitcoin address across all the emails. Usually an attacker, the fake Tesla team that I mentioned before, they use different Bitcoin addresses with each different attack. If you try to reach out to them, they will not return. So they're not willing to negotiate the 5 Bitcoins down to 3 or something like that. Whereas the fake Tesla team, they're real people. They actually engage in negotiations with you. And as I said, no client ever reported an attack, right? But if you don't know that, you might want to just pay the 5 Bitcoin just to be safe. So there might be other ways to extort money from you without even attacking you. So if you want to pay attention to very long emails, if you get a very long email, it's probably a hoax. And like it's usually an attacker who is real is very short and to the point. They often request amounts that are usually not in relation what the damage could be. Often their emails get actually already blocked the way they're written, right? So they don't even get to you. They send emails from free domains and things like that. So anyhow, so you can detect those fake emails, and usually they often are stopped. Anyways, I talked a lot about these already. So what are some of the ways that, any ideas? I mentioned already a couple. How do you protect yourself against some of these attacks that I mentioned already today? What would you change today that you have learned already from this, other than two-factor authentication? Any other ideas? Is there something in your environment that you want to do but you haven't gotten to yet? Okay, here are a couple. I don't want to read the whole list. Are we making this available to you guys? I'm hoping. So you can have that, no problem. But anyways, the bottom ones are probably the most important ones when it comes to the slides that I talked about today. So if you can prohibit PowerShell activity in your environment, do so. Disable it if possible. There's tools out there that allow or block PowerShell activity within the environment. And if your administrators need to use it, monitor it. Build use cases in your SIM that detect abnormal PowerShell activity. That's a number one. That could easily be implemented if you already have a SIM. So that's one big step to do, because a lot of the attackers are using this sort of attack. Users, how many have an environment where the actual user on the endpoint is an administrator? Okay, good. A lot of the environments that we look at that. If you can, or you should, remove the local administrative accounts or privileges from the users on the endpoint. Because if their credentials are stolen and somebody can access their workstation, at least they don't have administrative rights and can do some of the registry key entries and things like that that I already talked about. So it's another step. Unique passwords for local administrators. How many environments have we seen where the same password was used across the entire environment? So once they steal one password, they can move laterally around in the entire environment. Find out your service accounts and really do an inventory. You don't want to have too many of those service accounts out there because, again, once they are compromised, the attackers can do a lot of damage and move around laterally. Like we have seen Exchange account, AD account compromised. And once the attackers have these types of credentials, there's a lot of damage that they can do to your organization. Again, the other ones are pretty straightforward. You hear them all the time, but if you want to focus on some of these, I'm more than happy to answer some more questions around that. If you have something like the fake Tesla team knock on your door or you get some of the email, here's the phone number to call. We're available 24/7 to help you out. More than happy to do so. And if you want to talk to me in person, have any questions about these slides or other things when it comes to incident response, help you out with your playbook development or your incident response plan, more than happy to do so. And I think we'll also be here for the cocktails, correct? So we're more than happy to answer more questions then.
Alex, you mentioned reducing the number of service accounts.
Yes.
So I kind of go the other way on that, where I try to isolate my service accounts to a specific function that they're going to accomplish.
I'm not saying that my way is the only way. I think what you're trying to do is an excellent option too. Exactly.
Because if
Yes.
you use a common service account, your risk at compromise is so much higher versus a functional service account for the task at hand. What is your exposure to those?
Yes, I think at some point you're not able to reduce it any lower, right? Because you need a certain amount. But we have seen organizations that had hundreds of service accounts that are not necessarily necessary. So go through, see what's necessary, maybe work from a functional perspective to give privileges to users with the service account, but don't use the service account to actually do your administrative functions, right? So I think what you're saying is also a good approach. Yeah, thanks for that. Anything else? If anything, please remember fake Tesla team. That's all I have to say.
They will identify themselves as the Tesla team?
Tesla team, Angels of Truth, fake Tesla team, anonymous threat actor is what they use. Yeah.
How many attacks have you seen like that?
Where we were involved, 5. And I'm sure that we have talked to law enforcement who know that there have been others. And it's only in Canada.
And recent?
Recent, yes. Recent. They're still active. And I would love to provide information to law enforcement to catch them, but so far they seem to be elusive. So.
Does it look like they operate in Canada or just attack Canadian entities, or do you have any insight into that?
My gut tells me they are, but I have no proof. And I don't want to do any speculation. I actually believe that it's a Canadian who's doing it because he knows these organizations. So it's very interesting. It's a very real, actually close to home. So we have had attacks in Toronto, Calgary, Edmonton, and Vancouver by that Tesla team.
Can you say what type of organizations are targeted?
I mentioned earlier, so it's usually in the entertainment and mining. Okay. Cocktails, where are they? Do we know? Are they? All right. No minors allowed. I don't think there's any minors here. I just saw it on the invite. So anyways, thank you very much for your attention and thanks for joining us.